Do you ever wonder what is holding you back? In today's episode of Work and Life, we're talking about positive intelligence and self sabotage. Join us and our guest, Daria Belsner, as we talk about positive intelligence and how she uses the saboteur assessment in her work.
Welcome to Work at Life. This is a show for everyone who believes that work should be just as fulfilling as life outside of work, and that the way to get there is through building more human workplaces. I'm Maddie Grant, a culture designer and co-founder of a culture consulting firm called Propel, and I'm your co-host alongside my fabulous friend Sonia Lucina, an organizational psychologist heading up the workforce division at Question Pro.
Welcome to the show, Daria. Oh my goodness, it is so lovely to have you. I am so glad that we could reconnected. So for those of you who don't know me or Daria, we were actually colleagues some years ago in the UK, and she was just one of those people. We sat almost next to each other, and she was always this brilliant, like glowing person, always happy, in a positive mood, somebody you always wanted to grab lunch with. And so I loved the couple of years that I spent working in London. I enjoyed being around her so much and learning from her. And so it is just an incredible pleasure to have her on with us. A little bit about Daria, aside from my admiration for her, is that she spent the last 12 years in global operations and in the tech industry. And she is actually a business and leadership coach, also helping people navigate everything career and work related. As I mentioned, Daria lives in London, and she is a mom of two beautiful, incredible boys. So again, Daria, welcome. It is so lovely to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. You're making me blush, the words and it, like definitely. I just missed the times we had in London, and exactly like you and I were sitting opposite each other at the best time. So no, thank you so much for having me again, reconnecting after all these years. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it's a pleasure. Well, goodness, we have so many questions to ask you, but before we jump in, I just wanted to see, is there anything, additionally that you would add about your background, your career, your passions, and then we'll jump into the conversation about positive intelligence and saboteurs.
No, I think you did a perfect introduction. I really loved how you said like Daria was so positive, and I'm like, and now look at me, like years after I'm here talking about positive intelligence, right? So see,
Yeah. Well,
no, thank you.
it's beautiful to see when something like that fits so well, and when
Mm.
years later even you just realize that huge passion and decide to channel it in a different kind of way. And we talk with a lot of people who talk about their careers and what they've done and a lot of the self-discovery. And it's always incredible to see a story like yours, where it's something
Mm.
that was maybe inside of you even before you necessarily realized how much of a passion it is. And so now to take it, and I was mentioning how much you were a positive influence on me. And that was just, because we were in the same place. Like, it was not your
Yeah,
job. It was not something that you were waking up and saying,
right. Yeah.
necessarily I'm going to have this impact on my colleagues, but you did just naturally.
Mm.
And so now I think doing it is more of a profession in a more systematic way, I think is just absolutely incredible. So let's talk more about positive
Yeah.
intelligence. Just before we go deeper into the conversation, to make sure all of our listeners are on the same page, like, what is positive intelligence? How would you define it?
Mm. No, it's an interesting question, right? Because I was actually thinking about the introduction and what to say. And I was like thinking, okay, well, when people hear the word positive thinking, positive intelligence, I feel like there's this element of people just being tired of hearing it, because I'm sure you can agree, like you open your internet, your social media, I think there is too much of like think positively. It's just almost like, and it's good, it's beautiful, but at the same time I think it's overdone to the point that
Yeah.
people are kind of like, yes, I know, I like positive outlook is important, like enough, right? So I feel like almost like an opposite effect is happening.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's so important to just almost like be awake every minute of your day and be like, am I being positive? And it's hard work, isn't
Yeah.
it? So
Yes.
so this kind of topic is actually why I got interested in the topic and in this study was a book actually by Sherzad Shamin. So it's called and I hope we can share the book and the link, so to say.
Absolutely.
So his book is actually called Positive positive intelligence, and his idea is absolutely like I said just now, we do not spend enough time being aware of where we are. Are we in the negative or are we in the positive state? And he studies based on the fact that actually you do have two sides of your brain, and they're powered by different things, right? And kind of it really depends on which one overtakes and which one is stronger at the point. And only by kind of being conscious about that fact, one can understand, okay, is my brain being my enemy or is my brain my friend? And that's an interesting
Oh,
one, because imagine like your brain is your friend if it's telling you, okay, well, you have this important meeting tomorrow, you need to prepare. Your brain's being your friend. And if your brain is keeping you awake at night at 3 a.m., giving you this anxiety and everything, is your brain being your friend? So it's kind of like almost, and it's so interesting, isn't it? It's just kind of like this battle of the two.
ooh.
Right?
Girlfriend, to tell you how many times that happens to me. And my co-host Maddie and I often talk about our optimistic outlook and how we approach things. And I believe, and I always want myself to be a very positive person. And so what happens is, like, I found myself, for example, yesterday, I wasn't having a very good day. Like, I felt down and I wasn't sure why. Like, there was nothing to point to. And then I got so frustrated because I thought, oh my goodness, like, there's literally like no event that happened that was wrong.
Yeah.
In so many aspects, I feel so lucky. Like, why am I wasting a day being in a mad mood? What a waste. But like, I couldn't really do anything about it at the time. I think it took some hours. Like, it went by, like, in the evening, I was okay. Today I'm better. But it's interesting. Like, I think even when we can recognize that with our brains, sometimes when, to your point, it's not being our friend, how frustrating it can be, how exhausting.
No, exactly. But when I was listening to you, I just really wanted to say, like, but look, you already have your like half of your battle won, because you realized, like, I want to stop. This is happening. Because imagine how many people just go days or sometimes just weeks with our busy lives, when it's just almost like in this river and this current is just carrying you, and it's almost like happening to you, the mood and the brain, when not being your friend happening to you. So yeah, I think that's kind of defines positive outlook and positive intelligence. So it's not just all about the Instagram posts about thinking positively.
No, and I think I like what you say too, that like it takes work and it takes effort and it takes reflection, that it's not, you don't wake up one day necessarily and say, I'm going to be positive. Like, that commitment is critical as a first step, but then it's active working towards it. It's almost like health. Like, you say, okay, I'm going to exercise, I'll eat healthy, but it doesn't mean you're never going to crave chocolate. And it doesn't mean you're never going to actually eat ice cream, but to have that like mindset of every decision to make is like, I'm actually thinking about it and it's conscious, I think is really important. Yes.
Yeah, it's work. It's hard.
It is. So, one of the things that we do on our show is we go out and we ask, 300 workers, generally across the US, but this time we did US and UK, since you're in London. And we look for a fresh data perspective that aligns with the topic of our episode. And in some of the research that we've done before here at Question Pro, whenever I've asked about burnout or if organizations, listen to employees with empathy, there were oftentimes that I got different results between the US and UK. And so I thought, well, of course, you being in the UK, we'll ask both workers in both countries. But what was interesting this time, so we asked 300 workers in the UK, 300 workers in the US, how much do you believe that thinking positively and having a positive outlook has an impact on your team's performance? And the options were a great deal. Thinking positively is hugely important. Somewhat, it's important, but there's so many other factors that impact performance. Not so much, because other factors will always have a stronger influence. And then not at all. While having a positive outlook may be nice, I really don't think it impacts performance. And so we asked this question, and what actually, like, quite frankly shocked me, and I don't know if it's because like that the positivity or the mindset that I like to try to carry all the time, is that in both countries, more than half of the respondents actually said, not at all. While having a positive outlook may be nice, I really think I don't really think that it impacts performance. It was 58% in the US that said that, and 64 in the UK. And then the slight difference came in that in the US, the second highest response with 22% was, somewhat it's important, but there's so many other factors that impact performance. And in the UK, 30% said like not so much because other factors always have a stronger influence. So in the UK,
Yeah.
a little bit more people kind of lean towards like, I don't really buy, the thinking positively and having a positive outlook really has an impact on performance. Based on your research, what did you think when you saw these results?
Well, first of all, I want to say I was surprised because the numbers are high. It's not like, okay, we're on a bait, kind of like on this midpoint or anything like that. But at the same time, I think it really goes back to the point I made earlier. I do think that nowadays, just the concept of positive thinking, people don't realize what's actually meant by it. Just like you and I said, it is work. It's not just telling yourself once in the morning, I'm going to be positive, or positivity is important, and that's it. Of course, that's not going to kind of bring anything. And actually, when I was looking at the results, it really prompted me to open Shirzad's book again, and I'm like, but his research shows that like it's just all the studies that he like 275,000 people, salespeople higher positive outlook sales, 37% more. CEOs are more likely to lead happier teams and work climate, less sick days. There's just so much. So I'm like, okay, where's the disconnect? And again, I think it all comes to baseline happiness as well. And I don't know, like if you would want me to define that, but I think especially in the organizations, it happens a lot. We are all busy. So much is happening to us. Imagine if you're your leader, or even if you are a manager, you want to arrange those, I don't know, offsites or the days when you just really want to re-energize everyone, get together. It's same as with New Year resolutions, right? We're all just like pumped up, energy flowing. That's it. New beginnings, new life on Monday, all that happening. But at the same time, again, the current, the river comes, and it's just life takes us because it's so busy. So I really love, again, to go back to the book, that Shirzad does say that the positive intelligence is actually it's a muscle in our brain that we need to exercise, and it's a forgotten muscle. Similar with like if you look at your you go into the gym. Again, if you don't do anything, nothing's going to change with our muscles, right? But again, we don't see it the same way with our mental kind of state. And I think those are my thoughts on the results, which I was just like, oh, it's numbers.
Oh, it's unfortunate. I think to your point is that I think in many people's efforts to really install in others how much benefit positivity can have, like it went overboard, or it almost became a cliche. And it's a shame because, again, like you're saying, there's so much data to support it. But in some ways, like people like seem like they started to become resistant. And now it's not to say like, to be ignorant and say, oh, positivity is all you need to be successful. And positivity is like the only. But given, other things more or less being equal, if you're positive, you're probably, with your data, and the data shows, much more likely to have a better outcome. And there are different health benefits. And so in some ways, I would say, like, when you're thinking about practicing positivity, even if it's not always an absolute gain or the only thing you need to do to win or reach your goals, it certainly can't hurt. Like, not like maybe blind positivity where you don't think about the dangers or you don't think about the positive, it's not naively going about it. But when you do it the right way, like it can certainly have so many positive outcomes. So I think that's important for people to think about, like to come back and say like, no, you don't have to, like maybe stop reading inspirational quotes. It's not all about that. It's just really thinking the situations you've gone through, like how much like does it, maybe help with your resilience or your grit. All of those things are, quite a bit related. So switching a little bit now to self-sabotaging. First, I'll ask you what that means, because again, I was fascinated with the assessment that you shared with me. So I do want to talk about that. But before we jump into it again, to make sure all of our listeners can clearly follow our conversation and train of thought, What is self-sabotaging, and what are these saboteurs that we're going to talk about?
Yeah, it is fascinating, and I'm so glad that you agree. So again, the idea, and again, I would love to say that it was mine, but no, it absolutely Shahrazad is the one who developed the assessment, and his book is based on that. So the idea really comes from the fact that when we are children, of course, we are new to this world, and there's just so much kind of like both physical, emotional threats, uncertainty. So of course we need some mechanisms. We need something to protect us from the craziness of the world, right? So saboteurs is really kind of like those internal voices, and really those thought patterns, emotional patterns that we develop in order to protect us. So to give you a few examples, because of course, like, okay, what is it? What are those saboteurs? So Shirzad, he defines 8, and to give you examples, it would be avoider, controller, victim, stickler, hyperachiever, hypervigilant. So, for example, if you have maybe a controlling parent or someone, again, we're going back to childhood, we do have this parent who always wants you to do your best and really pushing you, you're most likely to develop something almost kind of like this, what you think is a friend, right?
Yeah.
This saboteur that to help you. But again, his study shows that as we become adults, we are okay, right? Because we are no longer so vulnerable in this world. Like, we don't need those anymore. But because we grew up with those, I don't know. I always, like, when I work with my clients, I know it's going to sound strange, but I quite often call them like creatures because one of the ways to actually, and we'll touch upon that, like when you work on what to do with your results, it's always good to almost like visualize and imagine what those saboteurs look like. So the biggest one is actually the judge. And I would like for our listeners to think about that. Like, so judge is the one that we all have, and he's like the most strict, so to say. So it's the voice in your head that's always telling you to be better, a bit of self-doubt, a bit of more control, demanding great results from yourself, from others. So I know it's a lot, and people and people are probably saying like, what are those voices and creatures living in my head? But I'm sure like it will become clear as we go along.
Yeah.
And I know you took the test, Sanya, right? And
I
tell me.
did. And I was actually just looking back when you were talking about the different ones. And I'm a psychologist as well. So I think
Mhm.
part of the reason why I'm just so fascinated with
Yeah.
this. And I, oh gosh, was it like 15 years ago? Is when I first started going to therapy.
Mhm.
And the main reason why I went to therapy is like, oh, poor Sonia, but it was because of perfectionism.
Mhm.
And I say
Mhm.
poor Sonia because I think of like in interviews when you get coached on in a job interview, when somebody
Yeah.
asks you like, what's your biggest weakness? Oh, I work too hard. And I remember when I actually worked for a coaching company, one of my colleagues said like, oh, never say that. Like there's always a
Hmm.
better, like there's always a more genuine one than like I work too hard. Like, okay,
Mhm.
great, you work too hard. Well, what else? I was like, I don't
Yeah.
like statistics. Like I literally started being honest, and I thought, I don't know if this is gonna backfire. But anyways, coming back, bringing myself
Yeah.
back to this. So the perfectionism, like, oh, it sounds like, wow, is it first world problem? But it is very psychologically taxing. It is a lot of pressure. There are a lot of different things that um happen that are mentally and emotionally exhausting. And so, as I mentioned, that was 15 years ago. And I've gone on and off, having different
Mhm.
therapists, like we're mentioning, like reading, talking with others, just understanding, doing the self discovery and doing the work on myself. And then when you sent me the assessment and I took it,
Mhm.
like my biggest saboteur was stickler. And I was like, oh, what's that? And then when I read the description,
Mhm.
perfectionism and a need for order and organization taken too far. And I just thought, no. Goodness, like I've
Oh
been working on
gosh.
this for so long. Like, and to your point earlier, it's maybe partly it's good recognizing what's the biggest thing that holds you back, but a part of me is like, oh man, like I really thought I made it farther
Yeah.
than this. But it was very like, and for me, it was weird because on the one hand, it was surprising. On the other hand, maybe I expected it to
Mm.
stand out because it's been something, but it was a very emotional experience seeing the results because I
Yeah.
thought, wow, okay, like I've
Mm-hmm.
still got work to do here. I thought, I made some progress, but in many ways, I believe that I made more progress than clearly I did, because everything that I read, all of these descriptions, I was like, wow, this is it. And I think to me, perfectionism before was more about appearances to others and
Yeah.
what others thought of me when I was younger. And
Mm-hmm.
now I realize that it's actually the standard that I set for
For
myself,
yourself. Yeah.
that I don't really care as much what others think about me. That's not my measuring stick.
Mm.
But what is my, bar for how good of a mom am I? How good of a
Mm-hmm.
child? How good of a spouse? And so I was thinking like like things like highly critical of self and others, strong need for self-control, like right is right and
Mm-hmm.
wrong is wrong. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So
Yeah.
anyways, like I really enjoyed it, because I think and then the other ones, the second one was pleaser. And that
Mm-hmm.
was again like not a surprise, because anytime you hear me speak, like one of my, I'll say my calling in life is to help make others happier, but then
Mm-hmm.
at what cost? Like I
Yeah.
had some time on Saturday and Martine took the kids. And so I thought like, I mean, this is like this living in
Uh-huh.
real life. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to empty the dishwasher. I'm going to vacuum the house. I'm going to clean the window. I'm going to put away the toys. And then I should have a little bit of time to do like 20 minutes of yoga and cut my nails. And that's exactly
Mm-hmm.
what happened. But it's like, as a mom, we get so little time to
Yeah. Why
ourselves.
don't you use it for yourself? More for
Exactly. Like
yourself, right?
mentally, I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, like it was a gorgeous day. I could have sat outside and read a book, and then I could have,
Mm-hmm.
gone and done a little bit more yoga and all of these things I would have done later in the day. But no, my mind didn't allow for that. My
Yeah.
mind went to like, get the things done that you need to get done for everybody's good. And then you should hopefully have some time for yourself. But if you don't, at
Yeah.
least you got all the big stuff done. So, anyways, tell me about yours. And then we're going to talk about what do
Yeah.
we do? Because I looked at like, with
Yeah.
this like sad puppy face, like at these results, and I was like, goodness, like how can I work on this differently? But anyways, tell me about your experience. Tell me about your little like gremlins or little
Yeah, yeah, I
monsters.
know. See, that's again working with clients. That's my favorite part when I'm like, well, imagine what do they look like, and that's
Oh,
when the fun part starts.
not cute.
Right?
Not cute.
Exactly, exactly. No, it's really, really interesting, and I love hearing others share results. So for me, I did a course, like with coaching, and I'm sure you're the same. You always learning something new. You looking at different studies, and this one came my way. And similar to you, I was like, oh my gosh. And I actually went to do like 8 week intensive program on
Wow.
working, how to weaken your saboteurs and everything. So kind of like the full one. But even before I started my course, I could see the change in me just by knowing my top saboteur
Okay.
um, next day. And I'll tell you exactly what happened.
Wow.
So mine are hyperachiever, which is 9 out of 9, and eight. No, just listen to this. Next one, 8 out of 9 is restless. So my initial reaction when I
Wow.
saw this, I was just like, wow, this is a very dangerous, crazy combination. Like also, it
Wow.
wasn't like, let's say, victim and hyperachiever. It was just like those two that are close and being so
Mm.
high. And again, I took the test, and I always believe that things come to us in the right moment in life. I was going through the stage when I was doing so much with my work, my career, having kids, of course, and doing my coaching stuff. So I would finish work like 6 or 7. I'll go do kids, and then it's like 11 or midnight. And what do? I'm like, yes, let me go and do more. And as you can imagine, after a few weeks of this, well, I'm sitting there being proud of myself, right? And I'll be honest, even when I saw the result, and actually, that's one really good, interesting thing to discuss with clients. And I know you wanted to ask me about like reactions
Mm.
and surprise.
Yes.
But again, this is proof that those saboteurs they pretend to be our friends. I was like, well, hyperachiever, it's a good one, right? That's what's kind of like make me that that one makes me go further in life and achieve things.
Wow.
And then again, reading the description, okay, but it's lied to you is that, again, with restless, that you can only be happy by constantly doing something, but are you neglecting your emotional well being?
Yeah.
Similar to what she was saying, time for yourself. is that what's happening? So the next day, and I mentioned that I saw kind of even before starting the course, the next day when 11 or 12 p.m. came, and I'm like, all right, well, let's do more. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it. My hyperachiever and my restless are here again with me. They're entering the room. So maybe I can just, maybe I shouldn't. And you know what? I didn't open my laptop and I didn't do more. And I
Yeah.
stopped myself. And now looking back, I'm like, yeah, I was driving myself into this crazy overworked state. But again, I believed that it was needed and it was good because I was going forward. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
So
story.
what God, and it's so like, would you like, I'm trying, like, I have so many questions. I'll try to streamline them, but would you recommend, like, I'm wondering, so as we're talking, I was flipping back and forth to my report and looking at the descriptions, and when you're
Hmm.
mentioning your saboteurs, like reading about them, I guess two questions. One, do you think that this is something good to almost like have with you and remind yourself, like
Yeah.
almost like, hey, on a monthly basis, or maybe like every Tuesday, every Thursday, every Friday, like morning, I'm gonna look and remind myself of what are these things that are holding me back?
Hmm.
Because it's kind of like what you were saying, like with New Year's resolutions, at some point you get a piece of information, it jolts you, and then without you realizing, you kind of fall back
Hmm.
into the pattern because changing
Yeah.
behavior takes a while.
Yeah.
So is there like some like almost like frequency or reminder or way that you would have to recommend for people to make sure that they don't forget about who these like false friends are?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's such a good question. Well, first, kind of like similar to what I said, it's always good to name them, visualize what they look like. Again, some people imagine almost like this big ball of fire, you know,
Mhm.
when it's a controller. Or again, you can go as crazy. It could be something real, or it could be an object. It doesn't matter. So it really depends on how much work and how much awareness you really want to give this.
Yeah.
If you, I would say, like very serious about doing something and weakening those saboteurs because you feel like actually it is impacting my life, not to just kind of almost, it's good to know about it, but no, you can feel the impact. I would say concentrate on one that you feel is giving you most problems, so to say. And what you can do is take your phone and set 3 alarms, one for the morning, one for lunch, and one for the afternoon. And in the morning, you need to spend this 5 minutes. Of course, it's not meditation, but again, it is, having that 5 minute space with yourself and think about your day. And just, of course, our days are crazy and some things happen that we maybe just, haven't planned for. But
Yeah.
most of the time, we kind of know what it's going to look like. And just think, okay, well, knowing how my day looks like, what are the situations when my saboteur can raise its head, enter the room,
Mhm.
right? Just have this assessment. Okay, and when it happens, what can I do differently? What am I not going to do? So you do
Yeah.
that in the morning. Then midday, you almost have like this check-in with yourself. How am I doing? What's going on? Again, really, it is a check-in. And then, as you can imagine, at the end of the day, it's more kind of like looking back, seeing any reflections of maybe, again, like you said, it's not about changing everything or clicking clicking your fingers and waking up a different person the next
Yeah.
day, right? So of course, just again spending 5 minutes with yourself. Okay, how did I do? That's what I wanted to achieve today. I knew that maybe I will be this, I don't know, hyper vigilant when I take my child to a park because I'll be like all over them and stuff. It's such a simple
Yeah.
example, but it's and it's not from work, um, but yeah, just having that assessment of how did I do, and reflecting, and tomorrow what do I want to do differently. And again,
Yeah.
people do it every day. They say it takes 21 days to change a habit. So if you really want to do it, you can do that for 21 days.
Well, 21 days like sounds sometimes maybe like surprisingly manageable, but you have to
Yeah.
do it consistently, right? It's not something like, oh,
Yes.
20, I'm going to do something a couple times and 21 days will pass and I'll be a new person.
Easy.
But I think that gives that like, it gives more chance that a disciplined action will actually not fall through the cracks because it's not
Yeah.
something you say, well, if you do this for a year, Oh man, a year to do, to stay
An
to this
alarm three
is a
times
little
a day.
trickier. Yeah, right. Like, what if I'm in a meeting, or what if I'm like running out to do something?
Yeah.
Is there anything, like, as we wind down? I can't, like, I'll have to ask you some of these questions offline. And for anyone that's interested, when you listen to this episode, you'll have Daria's contact information to follow up with her, because I'm sure if you're like me, you have a million more questions. But
Yeah.
is there? I think that was a really good practical piece of advice. Is there anything else that you would want to leave our listeners with, kind of, is there,
Mm.
and we'll put a link to the book, we'll put a link to the assessment, because I do think it's just very powerful and very fascinating, I think, what people can learn. Is there any, like, last piece of advice that you would
Mm.
give to someone as they're thinking about, like, should I even take the assessment? Is this something to invest time in? Or if I do invest time in it, like, how do I make the best of the results? Like, what is something else that I can do in addition to naming these false friends, or these little
Mhm.
monsters, and checking in with myself?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I mentioned the judge, and I understand it kind of sounded like doom and gloom, this voice is controlling, but there's also sage in all of us. And really someone, this good voice of this, loving parent that says you are doing enough, and everything you're doing is great, and don't be hard on yourself, all those positive and good things.
Yeah.
So again, whenever you feel that you are just slipping into this more negative side of the brain, overpowering, just catch yourself. And I think that really is what I want to leave our listeners with, is just being awake, being, yeah, just aware of what's
Yeah.
happening in this moment. Where am I? Because if we are aware, we can catch ourselves and we can go the opposite way. And that, again, like I said before, it's already half a battle won.
Yeah. It's
Because
really powerful.
yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Aria. I
Yes.
loved our conversation. Like, I feel like you gave me, even before the conversation with everything, so much to think about, but especially now, just some really practical ways to self-reflect,
Hmm.
and then also take action in ways that seem very manageable, but also very powerful. So thank you so much again for joining us today. I love this topic. I love the way you approach it. It's just been such a pleasure talking with you. So, like I mentioned, we'll share your contact information with everybody in the podcast, and just thank you so much again for all
Well,
of your
thank
time and wisdom
you.
shared with us.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm just so glad to reunite. And no, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, wonderful. And thank you to all of our listeners, and we'll see you again in the next episode. Take care, everybody.